Hi guys, well in this video we'll be examining what is the best financial vehicle to get you to wealth in retirement. Is it the pension or is it an ISA? And right at the end I'll be telling you a little secret that the government nor your pension broker want you to know, so make sure. So let's look at the principal differences between a pension and an ISA. Well, the biggest one is you get tax relief on your pension. That is to say, when you pay money from your salary, you've already paid tax on it. So the government refund the tax, 20% if you're a 20% tax rate payer, or 40% if you're in the higher bracket. So it's almost like getting 20% interest day one. There's not a financial vehicle in the world will do that for you, and that's why it's such a fantastic vehicle. So if you want to put £100 into your pension, you only need to put £80 in, because the government will refund the 20% tax you paid, topping it up to £100. In an ISA, you don't get that. Just whatever you put in is whatever you put in. It's your responsibility. The next thing is, and this is a bit of a downside to a pension, is you can only access it when you're 55. So if you're in your teens now, late teens, and you want to retire when you're 30 or 40, you can't. You have to wait, if your money's in a pension, until you're 55 to be able to access those funds. Whereas an ISA is way more flexible. You can access it anytime you like, which is good, because if you have an emergency and you really need to access those funds, you couldn't do it if you had a pension, but you can do it if it's an ISA. Now, some people argue that that prevents you from accessing it, and therefore it's a safeguard to stop you dipping into that ISA. Well, I take the view that I'm responsible enough to secure my future, and I don't need that safeguard, and I much prefer the flexibility that the ISA provides. The next thing is, on a pension, can you choose the funds? Well, perhaps you can. It depends. On an ISA, you definitely can. You can go an ISA in a self-invested personal pension and select the funds that match your profile, your risk profile, and also whether you're ethical investing. That is to say, perhaps you don't want to invest in stocks or in companies that add to global warming or test on animals. Not so perhaps on a fund. If you're working for a company and they provide the fund, you might just have to choose or take the fund that they give to you. You might not get that flexibility, but perhaps you will. You have to check with your employer. Talking about the employer, one of the good things about a pension is sometimes the employer will add to whatever you put in. Sometimes they'll match it 100%, sometimes they'll top it up by 10 or 20%, depending on the scheme. Not so in an ISA, because as it says, an individual savings account, and it's your responsibility. The employer will not put into you. You've got to put your own money in yourself. Now, what I want to do now is walk you through an example as to which is the most efficient way to get your wealth in retirement, using our pension ISA example. So a little thought experiment. I've set us a target of, in 30 years time, to raise £1 million using both those products. And I've assumed a growth rate of 8% compounded. Now 8% is what everybody would agree is achievable from the stock market. I would rather look at it as a worst case scenario. I think we can get much better than 8%, but let's call it 8%, so we're not over egging the pudding. So on a pension, how much would I have to put in order to get that £1 million with 8% compound growth over 30 years? It would be £540 per month. On an ISA, it's way greater than that, 675. Why? Well, because of the tax relief. That is effectively 80% of that. So you put that in, and the government will top it up with that extra 20% to get that number there. So you have to put a lot less. And over the 30-year term, that saving comes to £48,600, which is a massive saving and would otherwise nail on why you should put it in a pension. But for the dirty little secret that's coming up on the next page. Now, the interesting bit is how both of these pots are treated when you take the money out. Because remember, I said right at the beginning that the ISA, you didn't get any tax relief, but in the pension you did. Well, it works the opposite round at the end when you start taking the money out, in that the pension is taxable. Anything you take out is just seen as your income, and it's taxed in the usual way, added to any other forms of income you have. So you pay income tax on what you take out. However, an ISA is entirely tax-free. The fund grows tax-free, and anything you take out at the end, absolutely 100% tax-free. Now, let's look at another thought example. So we got £1 million, I said on the previous page, and let's say we're going to take 40,000 a year out of both funds, and we're going to 40,000 into £1 million gives us 25 years. Now I'm assuming no growth. Of course you'll be getting growth. Even if you take £40,000 out of £1 million, the remaining sum will continue to grow. But just as a thought experiment to make the sums easier, we're going to assume no growth on both funds. So over that term, that £40,000 over 25 years, the pension would have paid £103,250 in tax, whereas the ISA, nothing. And the way this is sold is that yes, you get great tax relief at the beginning, you turn the page, saving you £48,600, but right at the end when you want to take your money, they tax you on that. So it's go a £48,000 600 saving to a tax bill of 103,250, and that's what they don't tell you. Why don't the government tell you that? Well, because they want you to invest in a pension. It's better for the taxpayer if you fund your own pension rather than rely on the public purse, which is the same reason they put the age 55 restriction in there. So they won't tell you that it's better to put it in an ISA, and your pension broker won't tell you that. Why? I don't know, call me an old cynic. When I had my pension set up, my pension broker charged me £900 to set my pension up, to a low performing high fees fund, which I quickly, after a period of 6 months, cancelled, took my money out and put it in an ISA, because the ISA I set up for nothing. Didn't cost me a penny. Not quite true, there's a little setup charge, 0.16% I think it is in Vanguard, but nothing like the £900. So I did that myself. That one cost me £900. So I may be an old cynic, but that's maybe why the broker didn't tell me, and the government didn't tell you for the reasons I've explained. So in my opinion, if you want long-term, if you want great wealth in retirement and to reduce and save £103,000, it's the ISA you need. Now, honestly, the figures, the disparity, if you wish, between the ISA and the pension only work when you're talking big numbers, £500,000 to £1 million. And the argument is that people will say, well, most people won't get £1 million. Most people will get £50,000, £60,000, £80,000 of pension. Well, why? Why would they get that? It's because they don't watch the videos and they don't do like we do. We're different people. We are abnormal people, and we're going for the £1 million. And if you're going for the £1 million and you watch these videos, I tell you how to do it. It's the ISA you need. Any questions, please put them in the comment section below. Don't be stupid. Don't be normal, guys.